when I hear people on the left coming after, festivals like this or other kind of like things of this nature, it's always in the matter of saying, like, look at what this event is doing to the climate. You have to be more aware of how your individual actions are contributing to climate change. At the same time, you also hear similarly from leftists that when you critique, like the everyday uses that they do in their lives, or maybe you shop a certain way, maybe you buy a certain product, maybe you live in a house versus an apartment, whatever, people will push back and say, well, hey, well, 100% of the 100 corporations globally are producing 70% of the emissions. So you should really be talking to them. And it feels like these two ideals are kind of like going right at each other here. So is personal accountability really the thing that we're going to be going after people for when it comes to climate change? Or are we just focusing on these 100 corporations pumping out 70% of the emissions? Because these two narratives are really in direct conflict with each other. Do you guys know what I'm coming from here?
So I just want like the audience to know right now that me and Desmond didn't really talk before this, but Desmond just perfectly set up like the two quotes that I had prepared, like what I was about to say next. Like you just teed it up like for me, and so we're starting to mind meld is what that means. But this is a quote from the climate activists, right? They were basically, the whole protest lasted 45 minutes. It wasn't that long. But Mun Chong said, if you treated the climate crisis like an emergency, Burning Man wouldn't be a priority. She said, when you disrupt business as usual, you're forcing people to confront the situation and take a stance. We're hoping these kinds of protests become part of the zeitgeist. And so from what I understand, the reason they targeted Burning Man is because you have people who are close, you have people who are influential, who are rich, who are powerful, and they generally kind of agree with fighting climate change, right? They might not be the people who are actively fighting to address the systemic issues, but they're at least the people who are, driving electric vehicles, trying to, reduce their carbon footprint, generally taking those individual steps, even if they aren't using their power, wealth, and influence to really, fight on a systemic level against climate change. And that's, I believe, is why this event was targeted. And I thought it was brilliantly surmised with a quote from another did they even give his name? Oh yeah, Will Sems. This is just a guy in the article. Maybe he's some big influential guy, but he said, I have solar panels on my RV. The protesters drove here in gas-powered cars. They're literally making the climate worse. And it's like, I do think I'm someone who sides on this is a systemic issue that needs to be addressed systemically. No matter how many fucking paper straws we use, it's not going to make a difference. And I think that that's exactly the point that these people were trying to make to these people who are attending Burning Man. Like, hey guys, think about this. Think about what you're doing with this festival. Think about what you're doing with all of the money, power, and influence that you have. And if you really care about fighting climate change, it's not enough to get an electric vehicle. It's not enough to put solar panels on your house. Yes, do those things. But if you're in a position of power, do something about it. And I think that is what the activists were trying to say.
Yeah. So I think it's a little different than targeting individuals because, so like for example, not everyone can afford an electric car or solar panels on their house. Those are just everyday things in life. But a 70,000
on their house, no one can afford their house.
Yeah.
What house are you
if
talking
they can
about?
afford a house at all, yeah.
Where's this house?
A 70,000 person party in the middle of the desert is not a necessity. It's not. And so I think you come at it that direction that, making people use paper straws, absurd. That's ridiculous. It's not going to do anything. But and I don't use straws personally. I think it's better to drink it from the glass. I like it. But I at least I can see the utility. But you can have parties that don't need to involve all of the waste that goes involved into putting Burning Man together. It's optional. So.